We welcome in Gary Cohen to the show. Gary, thanks for joining us on this difficult day. What were your memories of Bud Harrelson?
Well, Buddy was my favorite player growing up. When I first started watching baseball, I think I was too young to know the expression that baseball is the one sport where someone of any stature can play. But I think I was immediately drawn to Buddy because he was the little guy who performed so well. The guy he replaced as Mets shortstop was Roy McMillan, who had been a great all-star shortstop, Gold Glover with the Cincinnati Reds. And McMillan was a similar type of player to Buddy and really was his mentor when he first came up in 65 and then more to stay in 66. Then he took over as a starter in 67. And there wasn't a play in the field that he couldn't make. He was great on his backhand. He was terrific going up the middle. He was great going back on pop-ups. He only won one Gold Glove, but he certainly could have won more. But I think what stands out about Buddy more than anything else is that he was a regular guy who was able to perform at a big league level. And, they say that you should never meet your heroes. It's not always true. Meeting Buddy was just as satisfying as rooting for him because he was just a nice man. He was a terrific guy. He was self-deprecating. He was funny. He got along with everybody. He was a great coach. Everybody raves who played for him about his infield coaching and his third base coaching. And while his managerial tenure didn't go as well as it might, he was able to dive into it and really took it to heart and then became an owner with the Ducks. So he had a fantastic life. He was a wonderful man, and he was a great ball player, and he was my personal hero.
How about the legacy, Gary, that he leaves on the Mets franchise?
Well, he was a Met. I mean, that's who he was. He played 13 years for the Mets and played in 3 World Series. He played in 2 World Series, coached for another one. And as you mentioned, the only man who was in uniform for both the Mets World Series victories. But I just think his legacy is that he was a great player who was as unassuming as they come. And he was a great friend of Tom Seaver. They were roommates on the road early in their careers. And the fact that we've now lost both of them is it makes a lot of us really think back to our childhoods and think about just how much we've lost.
And maybe most memorable play, the brawl with Pete Rose that we showed in that clip right there. I want to get your thoughts, Gary, as a diehard, passionate Met fan, watching that take place live. What'd you think when Buddy went at it with Pete Rose in Game 3 of the 1973 NLCS?
Well, it was a little shocking because, Pete outweighed Buddy by about 50 pounds. But, Buddy was not going to back down from Rose. Buddy had said some things about the Reds lineup and how well the Mets had controlled them earlier in the series. And obviously Rose took exception to it, which I think is probably part of what fueled it. But Buddy had a great sense of humor about it. Mike Vaccaro, in fact, just put out a column talking about how the following winter, the New York baseball writers gave Pete Rose their Good Guy Award, and Buddy presented it to him. And his line was, I gave him the best punch I had. I hit him straight in the fist with my eye. So that's who Buddy was.
All right, Gary, we appreciate your time very much on this difficult day.
Thanks, Sal.